That muffin is looking awfully like a hamster.
Greetings, Legionnaires, and welcome to Deep Dive Zone, a Sonic review series for fans of all shapes and sizes. As usual, I'm your host, Devin, and Lauren, Bruce, I am so excited, because today's Knuckles arc heralds the return of Enerjak, which means that I can use the Reason Had Its Day, brother panel over and over again whenever Enerjak does something that doesn't make any sense.
Heck yeah.
It makes things easier.
Yes, we are starting off today with the Dark Vengeance saga of the Knuckles comics.
I like on the first cover here how they just show Enerjak's hand. So you might not even immediately recognize they're the one who's returning just by looking at the cover.
Yeah, they like to make triptychs with the Knuckles arc covers, which is good in some aspects, not great in others, but this one's pretty cool.
It's a cool idea, but yeah, it's not always effective.
Yeah, I like that Archimedes is apparently, like, charging a Kamehameha.
You know, it does look like that.
What I don't like is that for each book of this arc, and maybe a little bit more going forward, we get these awesome Spaziant drawings on the title pages, except Ken has shoved them to the side and squished them into, like, less than half of the page, so it looks terrible.
Yeah, why did he do that? What the heck?
I mean, inferiority complex?
No, this is just Penders being dog shit at editing, and I know that it's him, because he does this on other stuff too, like his own solo work. His digital editing skills are terrible. You should see his Photoshop work. We're gonna see some of his Photoshop work and compositing. He just doesn't understand how to make it look good.
Oh boy.
But yes, we are starting off here in Knuckles number 7 with Deadly Homecoming. Obviously written by Penders, drawn by Gallen. That's not going to change for a while. When the Chaotix suddenly disappear, Knuckles and Julie Sue investigate. Meanwhile, Enerjak returns from space and cooperates with Kragok on a plan for Dark Legion dominance.
So, yeah, at the start here, Enerjak is imprisoned in a Chaos Emerald, and someone's talking to him. I don't think that's revealed at all in any of the issues we read today, who that is, right?
No, I don't believe so. In any case, I don't know if I guess he's imprisoned in there? I don't know if that's just a Chaos Emerald showing a vision of him being imprisoned in space?
To me, I assumed he was imprisoned because this seems like the only reason he didn't immediately come back. I joked that it was because he just was like, okay, it's just a game or whatever, but I think that's the idea.
That makes sense.
I suppose it makes more sense than him just staying there for no reason. But yeah, on the starting page here, we have Dimitri exploding out of a statue of himself, which I think is kind of fun.
That is really funny.
Yeah, that is wonderful. And Kragok has a great exclamation, by Emil's force. Unfortunately, I checked, and that doesn't actually reference anything on, like, Vale's bones, which is bad.
He's referencing the popular character Emil from the hit RPG game Nier.
Oh.
That's not a funny reference.
Oh, that's gotta be it.
The hit RPG game that came out like 10 years later.
You know what? If this was in like 1997, when the hell did Nier come? This doesn't matter.
I'm pretty sure Nier was 2007.
Okay, so that's pretty close. But yeah, Dimitri shows up and is just like, who the hell are you guys? And they're like, oh, we're the Dark Legion, we like you. And then he just immediately takes over them, and they're just totally cool with it.
Well, how can they fight against him to not taking over? The man's basically a god.
That's not my problem. My problem is that, like, Dimitri was not a techno-fascist. He was not a tech fetishist. These were the guys that spawned up because of what Edmund wanted, which had nothing to do with Dimitri at the time.
Yeah.
So you say that, but as we've observed before, Dimitri's ascension to godhood is touted as some sort of technological triumph, even though it kind of was on accident. In actuality, he takes all the credit anyway. And besides, they are very obviously honoring him here. And so, you know, they're like, oh, it's the great Dimitri in the flesh. Yeah, we'll do whatever you say. And, you know, he has a god complex. So he's like, sure, yeah, sounds great.
Yeah, all right, sounds good.
You know what? You're right. I did not consider that. I forgot that thing about the so-called technological triumph.
I'd also like to
Yeah,
point out on what page is this? I think this is page 6. At the bottom, where Dimitri has his foot up on the remains of his statue. If you look at the far left of the page, you can see one of the Dark Legion members very clearly has the face outline of an echidna now.
Oh,
yeah.
you're right.
So how the hell
Um,
do these suits work?
I assume that was just the artists realized, oh shit, these suits don't make any sense. We gotta fix this.
well, the eyes are still wrong.
The eyes
But
are still wrong,
it
but other than
actually
that,
comes off more like it really is a mask of some sort
yeah,
here.
yeah. Honestly, yeah.
Anyway, I would love to
Interesting.
keep bragging about that, but there is more story, and we've talked about that already. So, like, yeah, Knuckles and Julie Sue are kind of just like talking about what's happened recently. They're having, a few moments to debrief before they're going to get launched right back into the action.
Yeah, Knuckles is kind of, well, he's annoyed because he keeps being kept in the dark about everything, which is like, at a certain point, it's like, I'm glad that the story is sympathetic to that. I wish that you would stop doing it, though.
Yeah, it does seem a little odd that they're even commenting on it.
After that, we go to Archimedes and their ancestor, Dio. And I like how Archimedes is all confused, and Dio is like, "Oh no, there's great danger and all this." It feels almost like his position has been reversed a little bit
Mhm.
because finally he's in the dark for once, and then Enerjak goes in and wakes him.
He's got his own lock now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually want to turn back this page just for a second because we have this little bit where Julie Sue is talking about like being othered for having been a Legionnaire. And I think that that makes sense, as a character trait, just because the Legion is dangerous, but also she didn't really choose to be a part of it. I think she was technically born into it. But I like this panel where she says, I guess my former friends aren't so popular with you straights. I can't even walk the streets without people either staring at or avoiding me. And I just love
my.
Ken's boomer lingo, having Julie Sue, be not acknowledged by the straights.
Oh my.
Sonic fandom is largely LGBT at this point, so I think it's like accidentally prescient, but it is funny.
How do people even know she was part of the Dark Legion?
That's my question, yeah.
She's got a cyber dreadlock.
Well, okay, I guess
I
that's a
I
good
did have a
point.
question about why she had that. That just answered it.
I have no idea what it does, but she has it.
Yeah, she has it, and I guess it has something to do with her being a former member of the Dark Legion, because they're like, I really can't really call them transhumanists because they're not humans, but
Transechidnaists.
yeah, there you go.
Anywho, so yeah, we get the scene with the ants, and we also get this scene with, like, the Echidna High Council or whatever, talking to General Helmut von Stryka about dingo rights.
Well, so since you brought up the sort of mixed portrayals of the dingoes, I have kept my eyes out for how they're acting. And I was initially impressed here because Stryker was actually acting pretty reasonably, but then they had to ruin it at the end because he has his fingers crossed behind his back and lies about, actually cooperating. Strangely, though, I don't think that actually comes into play in this arc.
Not really, and I don't really know why he'd want it to, because, Echidnaopolis basically telefragged their city, so the dingoes literally are all homeless, so it's like, you actually should be trying to get housing for them before whatever your stupid imperialist plans are.
Yeah, well, if he was being reasonable.
Yeah, maybe he's
Yeah.
just crossing his fingers because he doesn't give him his word of honor, he just gives him his regular word.
Maybe.
Anywho, Knuckles is, I guess, so annoyed about having been kept in the dark that he decides to go out for himself and try to just steal an ant to give him some exposition for free.
Yeah, I mean, he's starting to realize how these things work. I guess. Good for him.
Yeah, he's a smart guy.
I appreciate that they bring in Lava Reef here. That's where the fire ants live, and that, makes sense.
Yeah.
Doesn't look anything like it, but it is lava at least.
Well,
I have low expectations. I'm impressed that they did anything.
Yeah. I was sympathetic before to Knuckles' mom, Lara Lay, and her new guy, Darth Knuckles, or Windmacher is his name. Because he seems like a better guy for her than Locke, because Locke is crazy and terrible. And I think that's still true, but this scene here annoys me because, Lara Lay is, being really worried about Knuckles, and she's really remorseful over how everything went with him and Locke. And Windmacher is basically just saying, well, that's what happens when you marry a guardian. It's like, he basically says you were dumb and young and made an honest mistake. And not that, the system of a guardian's wife having no say in her son's upbringing is unjust in any way. Like, he should be saying that that's wrong, not that you made a mistake.
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I was a little disappointed by this whole exchange because when Knuckles' mom first broke down a little bit, I was like, oh, impressive. There's actually some question about what's right here. Like, but then here they're just like, no, she's just wrong. I mean, she's sad, but like she did it to herself. And yeah, that disappointing. Can't things be ambiguous ever?
No, because if you make it ambiguous, then, someone might miss it, and that's not good.
Someone might miss it,
Right.
or God forbid, someone might disagree.
Oh, no.
So with Knuckles' mom here, I realized so the Guardians all live for like 400 years or whatever, but assumedly their wives don't.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Huh, I
That's
didn't
like
think about that.
messed up, unless they're all as detached as Locke, in which case that's really messed up.
Well, most of them tend to be about as detached, maybe not as detached as Locke, but fairly detached. This
But
is
yes.
something that we'll see a little bit.
Yes. So there's some detective work going on here with Knuckles.
Yeah, no, so they look for SBO, he's not in his invisible house, and basically they just get suspicious. They don't draw any conclusions yet. Just something bad's going on. And we see that Hawking is in bad condition. He did not die in the last arc, but he's not looking great.
So once again, here's another sort of troubling thing. Hawking is just like, guys, why do I have to still be alive for 400 years? Just let me die. And Locke is like, no.
Yeah, it is a wild scene where they have Locke interface with his brain, and all he asks is like, oh, we need you for shit, and he's like, no, please let me die. I'm old and racist, the world doesn't need me anymore.
Yeah, Locke's over here doing a mind meld, which that adds more credence to my theory that the Echidna society is just bootleg Vulcans.
Yeah. In any case, we get to see, we get one page of Knuckles and Julie Sue going to check, what is it, Mighty's house, probably? Somebody's house. Whoever it is, they're not there.
Well, based
but I want
off of
to,
where they're living, it's definitely Mighty.
but I want to highlight this, this little intersection with the Dark Legion and Dimitri, for some reason, not wearing his armor, hanging out suspended upside down on the wall of a Dark Legion tent.
I appreciate that they're colored the same way they are in their debut story, because that's the design I always remember because I never read the Knuckles comics
Yeah.
before. So that's a neat little callback. Yeah, no, they're just, showing off, being weird, being like, look, I can float upside down. Isn't that awesome? You cannot even fathom my power.
I suppose it's probably him doing the thing that we see at the end of this issue, which Knuckles and Julie Sue have basically spent the entire issue looking for people and finding nothing, but Dimitri, that is to say Enerjak, maybe he's like astral projecting himself here because he shows up out of nowhere to attack Knuckles and Julie Sue, and he gets real big.
Yeah, just because, just to have that, final shot, I guess. Gotta show off all the time. I'd like to point out, though, before they do get ambushed, Julie Sue is like, at this, she offhandedly is like, I'd rather be your enemy than who's coming and doing all these things. And Knuckles is like, who knows whether you are or not? And I find that funny that even at this point, he's apparently still suspicious.
Well, it's like it's accidentally very good because we haven't been given a great amount of justification for why she even wants to be here in the first place, so it kind of works.
Yeah, it makes sense from his
Yeah.
perspective. That's true. But she's doing a very bad job at whatever the heck she's trying to do if she's trying to do something.
Yeah. So yeah, big Enerjak. He's got horrible teeth.
Ooh,
I mean, I guess his teeth look very healthy, but they're
need to go see a dentist. They're like kind of pushed in.
yeah, not exactly much of a story in this part one. It's really just sort of treading water until we need Enerjak to attack.
Yeah, well, it's the setup
Yeah.
issue as per usual.
Yeah.
It's almost like some of these Knuckles arcs are written like extra long issues that have just been split into 3.
Almost like a lot of these Knuckles arcs didn't have to be, or a lot of this early Knuckles stuff could have just been like specials.
I guess that was intended at one point, so.
Mm.
Knuckles number 8 here. This is a better cover than the first one because you have the big Enerjak in the middle, and you have Knuckles and all the Chaotix. It's only game stuff and Enerjak on this cover.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Not sure what's going on with SBO's face, but I digress.
So what pose is Charmy doing?
He's doing the falling backward, feet up, hand underneath your legs, other hand in front of your face pose.
Oh,
You
okay.
got it.
100%.
This is the same deal as that cover from a while back with Sally doing the weird neck-breaking kick thing. I think Spaziant just... He wants to be dynamic, but doesn't quite know how to make it believable.
I guess so.
I guess, yeah.
Well, we have here in this story, we have the Gauntlet. We have the Gauntlet. Penderson Gallon. While Enerjak torments Knuckles, Julie Sue seemingly returns to the Dark Legion, keeping the Chaotix from escaping their clutches.
Oh boy, I wonder if they are actually betraying everyone or not. It's such a mystery.
Really makes you wonder.
Yeah, you definitely introduced the likable action girlfriend character to only have her secretly be a real villain. Anyway, Enerjak is like teleporting Knuckles across like deep space and underneath the sea and whatever, and it's basically just to prove how cool he is because he doesn't leave him there ever for long enough to actually like hurt him.
So yeah, in the first arc with Enerjak, he was clearly like very capable of just annihilating everyone in a thought, but they just had to turn it up to 11 in this comic and just really make me wonder why he doesn't just win instantly. The reason, of course, is because he's messing around. He doesn't want to kill Knuckles. That actually comes up later,
Right.
because eventually he's like, well, he does decide to try to, but
Right.
at the moment he's just toying with him.
Yeah, right now it's ego.
Yeah, I think what this comic needed was a good jobber, you know, someone who was comparable to Knuckles in strength, but who they could have the villain beat the crap out of.
It's an apt complaint, especially seeing Knuckles just get bopped around all the time.
Yeah.
He feels like he doesn't have much agency because he doesn't. Locke eventually just comes in.
Oh,
It's like, all right, your time to shine, my son. But until then, he doesn't really get to do much.
No. It's a heavily mandated adventure. I'll say, we sort of went over this bit with Julie Sue and the Dark Legion already. She's basically, I guess, trying to lie to them to get back in with their ranks or whatever. I wanna talk about Sergeant Rykor here, who has the most metal design of any echidna we've seen, to the point where he actually looks unique because a bunch of his dreads are like cut off and half his face is Terminatorified.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I actually, this is probably my favorite part of this issue is Julie and the Dark Legion, because she's introduced after they're initially defeated, so you barely know her in that context. So it's cool that they sort of reintroduce her to it, and then she gets to be sneaky. And yeah, they're doing a little more with the Dark Legion. Honestly, I'm impressed they keep expanding upon them. Definitely
Yeah.
prefer that over weird masked people. They're still here, but he's cool.
Yeah. They also all seem to hate her even in the Dark Legion, which I guess is one more reason why you'd assume she wouldn't actually be wanting to go back for real.
Well, yes, they are rightfully suspicious of her.
Right.
I think that's the main thing, but I mean, also, it's probably a pretty rough place.
Yeah. So, Lorelei comes to Remington trying to find Locke because she needs to talk to him about, I guess, the fact that he's a shitty dad, maybe, and a shitty husband. But, I guess some part of Echidnopolis government is state enforcement of Guardians being cryptic and secretive.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
this
pretty much.
supports my thought that Locke does have some sort of contact with the government, because we're like, how do they know about Knuckles and all that? Because seemingly Remington is able to bring her to Locke if he wanted to, but he's like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, which is, it's kind of screwed up.
Oh yeah, totally. This
Yeah.
is a whole jumbled mess of like forced so many people are forced away from others, and information is hidden away, and yeah, it's for no good reason that I can think of.
I mean, if it was meant to be a commentary, it's hard to view it as that because they always try to present Echidnopolis as utopian.
I mean, I agree. I feel like they're trying to make it seem perfect, but
Right.
it does not come off that way at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a problem of not knowing the intent, I guess. So Knuckles is still getting screwed with. I don't know if I have anything specific to say, other than he fights another monster that kind of looks like a beholder but isn't.
It looks like the Devil Watcher way back from like when he encountered Tails' wizard relative.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
that's the thing I'm talking about, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, which is weird because that was supposed to be a fictional creature in universe. I don't think it's exactly like the same thing, but it's weird, the resemblance.
Yeah,
Maybe it's like lizards and dragons or something.
something like that. Locke and Saber, I don't know if I have nothing to say about the scene with Locke and Saber. They just look at Knuckles.
Yep, they're doing their thing.
But Knuckles barely manages to escape that monster, only for Enerjak to be right there and be like, "Hey, what's up, dick?" Uh, and we finally get to see where the Chaotix have been this whole time, which is obviously they've been kidnapped by the Dark Legion. I don't know. I don't think there was any ambiguity about that.
Right.
The real ambiguity is, whoa, Julie Sue is making sure that they stay captured. Has she turned on the on the chaotix for real? Oh no.
No, of course not.
No, because that would make for too much intrigue.
Yeah. Things. If ever you're confused about what's really going on, well, you're reading these comics. But if ever you're confused about who's good and what's right and all that, they'll shove that in your face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Enerjak teleports Knuckles into the stratosphere and lets him fall because he's just very extra. And Kragok, with the kidnapped ants, the ants got kidnapped. We glossed over that, but that's fine. It's fine. And he traps them in a crystal ball, which he then puts in like a cooler. It looks like just a beer cooler, something that you take on a camping trip. And then he buries that.
It's another thing that got invented for a second time.
Oh yeah, no, they stole it from Rotor.
Oh.
Makes sense.
They didn't get the thermos though, so we'll be okay.
Yeah, on the one hand, this is like really stupid. Like, oh yeah, great. Bury the ants that can teleport. I mean, supposedly they're not able to teleport because like the thing prevents it or whatever. But still, they're sneaky. You're just asking for them to get out somehow. But on the other hand, this is like horrific. Like just burying them underground so they'll suffocate eventually.
Don't you know that ants don't have lungs? I don't know what that joke was. I'm sorry.
I'm trying to think about ant physiology now. Like, do they actually have lungs?
I think they need air, maybe?
Everything needs air to breathe.
I'm now learning how little I know about ants. For all I know, they might actually be able to control fire.
Probably.
Well, a noted superpower of real life echidnas is to do what Enerjak does here, where he disintegrates Knuckles.
Yeah. So Just because.
Roll credits. That's the end of the series, everybody. Knuckles is dead.
Damn. Rip and piss.
No, it's the cliffhanger, obviously.
Damn.
I find it weird that he's like turning into bubbles. It's like he's being dissolved by acid.
I feel like that's just Enerjak being extra.
Well, it totally is, yeah.
Well, yeah, we know obviously that he doesn't die here, so.
I mean like the whole, dissolving into bubbles look. That is totally.
Yeah, I see. Makes me wonder what Knuckles is so scared of, though, since if he's not being disintegrated, I don't know why he would think that he would be. I mean, I guess he can see it, but it probably doesn't feel like being dissolved, you know?
At this point, also, he's got to understand that Enerjak's just fucking with him, and he's probably just going to put him back together.
Yeah.
His spirit is starting to be broken a little bit, unfortunately.
I guess.
Yeah. But we get to see the result of that disintegration in Knuckles number 9 here. And oh boy, we've got Helmut von Stryker on the cover. Aren't you excited?
Well, he's on the cover, but he's practically irrelevant.
Yeah.
I do like the sentence, we'll get to see the result of that disintegration.
Yeah, which is to say not much.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got Twilight of the Titans. The Dark Legion attacks Echidnaopolis while Knuckles reunites with the Chaotix, but both sides' plans are interrupted when Mammoth Mogul suddenly appears on the scene.
So, yeah, we'll get there. But before we get there, so we don't immediately get to see the result of the disintegration. Instead, we get to see Enerjak, like, leading the Dark Legion to the promised land, like Moses or something.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell is going on here. Are they supposed to have been lost in the desert? That doesn't make any sense. Why do they need a giant golden bridge to Echidnaopolis?
Well, it's just Enerjak being extra, as we keep saying.
Yeah. He's writing Bible fan fiction and casting himself as Moses. Anywho, the Chaotix don't get to go with them, obviously. They are instead tied to stakes in the sand dunes, which doesn't make any sense to me because it's sand.
Look,
If they were like really long stakes, that would be effective.
Yeah.
They're not, though.
Or it's just the Dark Legion being extra.
I suppose. I suppose if Kragok did it, I would believe that, yeah.
Yeah.
There is a really good little detail, which is that Mighty's not tied up with ropes, he's tied up with chains because he's stronger.
That's
I feel like Mighty should still, like, the shit we've seen him do, I feel like those chains shouldn't even be a problem for him.
Look, he's been sitting in the desert for a while. He probably hasn't even been given any water. He's probably really tired.
Yeah, dehydration. So we get this really weird scene when we finally do get to see what happened to Knuckles, which is that he wasn't disintegrated, but he was teleported by Aether and the Ancient Walkers. So maybe what was happening is that we were seeing him being partially disintegrated, but Aether saved him, and so that's why that happened?
I don't know, but I can't believe this is the third time that someone's been disintegrated. It was very obvious this time, but then they were actually just teleported.
Yeah, Penders really likes that trope, doesn't he?
But yeah, Aether is talking about how, the Ancient Walkers know the true power of the Chaos Emeralds, unlike Enerjak, so you can go get him, beat him, yeah.
Yeah,
he doesn't really give...
That he can fight now, so he's gonna actually win.
Yeah, he doesn't give him anything useful. He just says, "Go do it, stupid."
You're the main character. Win already.
Well, he does at least teleport Knuckles to where the Chaotix are tied up, which means that this entire experience for them was basically completely pointless, and for Knuckles. It's like we just needed to get Knuckles out of the way so that we could have the Dark Legion thing happen.
Yeah, literally, these are just filler, a whole lot of these stories. I like, though, when Knuckles comes in and sees the Chaotix, he says the Chaotix in the style of the logo.
Yeah. And about the same time, Archimedes, manages to telekinetically communicate with Knuckles to help him find Hank Hill's buried cooler in the desert here and save them. There's also this weird joke where Knuckles doesn't know how to open the box, even though it's just a button you press.
I mean, he's never seen a cooler before.
Yeah, they're trying to do like Knuckles. It kind of comes off as a more modern Knuckles joke, actually. Because now that I think about it, there's not a whole lot of Knuckles not being smart in these. Actually, he's supposed to be smart,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
it comes off
we'll get
like
a nice
that.
helping of Knuckles being stupid in the romance arc, but
Oh no.
Oh, okay.
I think it actually makes sense that Knuckles would not have a lot of technical know-how.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a box, so. Oh, also, I guess it like lightly implies that Charmy was in there with them. He seems to fly out of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was, even though he wasn't shown having been put in there. So that's strange.
Inconsistent
funny.
Charmy size.
His
Oh.
his line here is, "Hey guys, forget about me," which implies to me that yes, they did in fact forget about him, not the characters, the creators.
I
they remembered
appreciate that
at this point.
way more if that is actually the case. Like that was an in joke. They're like, oh shoot, we forgot to draw Charmy in these scenes. Well, let's make him say something about that.
But yeah, now we have the Dark Legion assault on Echidnopolis, and Echidnas and Dingoes alike are fighting back.
It always gets me when there's an editor's note defining a quote unquote big word. At one part, Enerjak is like, deliver yourselves unto me and I will be magnanimous, editor's note, which means generous in forgiving.
Why do you not just write the word that everyone's gonna know instead? I will say, Julie Sue, if she's not sincerely rejoining the Legion, she put on a hell of a performance, you know?
So yeah, she's looking for her moment. Honestly, it's a very tricky situation for her. Luckily, she does get a break here in a second when Enerjak is mysteriously teleported away.
Yeah, that happens, and then I guess her whole thing is that she drives the UFO into a pile of sandbags and knocks Kragok over.
Well, yeah, I mean, you knock their leader away, that's gonna be pretty demoralizing.
It's just, it doesn't feel like a very, like, big moment.
No, you're right. Not very well planned. Yeah, I don't have any more to
Yeah.
say on that bit.
Yeah. Let's instead talk about where Dimitri ended up, which is, it's Mammoth Mogul, he's here!
Yes. So this part caught me so off guard when I was reading it. I was like, what? Mogul is here? That like we're getting stuff you know, from Mogul hasn't been even mentioned in the Knuckles comics at all. But then suddenly he shows up here and he uses the sword and it's like a culmination of his whole plot line and it's perfect because my big complaint about Enerjak is he's just so ridiculously overpowered and he usually loses for stupid reasons because he's an idiot. But in this one instance, they actually defeat him in a way that is 100% satisfying.
Well, and more than that, we have compared Mogul to being a version of Enerjak before, so who better to
That's true.
depower him?
Yeah. Mogul is just everything Enerjak wanted to be, except better. So rightly so that he taunts him as he is defeated and falls to the ground, depowered completely.
Yeah, and it's also a rare instance of Penders using a bunch of concepts that aren't his, because he did not create Mogul, Scott Fulop did, and Fulop didn't write this issue, he didn't have any part in it, so I guess we should call Penders a hypocrite on Twitter, and he'll finally be so owned that he gives all of his characters back.
He gives all of his characters to us.
Don't actually do that again, by the way, like, I'm making a joke there, don't do that. Don't harass people on Twitter, or any other site. Anywho.
Not yet.
So, yeah, Mogul depowers Enerjak, turning him back into wrinkly old man Dimitri.
I would like to question, why is he turned into an old man?
I...
Old.
Would he have effectively been preserved at the point he was imbued with chaos power? So
Maybe
he would still be, like, young?
Maybe he only gets to not age while he still has that power.
Well, that's stupid.
Damn. Going hard on this issue. What I want to know is why Knuckles bothers to catch him. He should have just let him crack his head on the fucking pavement.
He's a hero, Devin. He can't do that.
Knuckles is a good person. He's not a bastard like you are, apparently. Letting old people kill themselves.
He wasn't killing himself. He was being killed by Mogul.
Letting the old person get murdered.
Listen, he was a ruthless whatever.
Yeah, I like you just cut off at ruthless dick.
He was a ruthless dick and a tater. Anyway.
So after that moment of super satisfying plot arc coming to fruition, everything else kind of goes down pretty easily until the very end. They're able to beat up the Dark Legion. Yay, the day is supposedly saved.
Well, no, the Dark Legion escapes with their crusty, dehydrated old man.
Dehydrated.
Wait, do they?
Yeah,
well,
you
they
can see
fight them
Dimitri-
off.
They
They
do.
fight them off anyway. I didn't notice that, actually.
Yeah, well, they mostly get them, and I do think that they have Kragok in custody now, which is good. Yeah, him and Julie Sue.
Okay, yeah, that's true. Oh, poor old Julie Sue. You're only yourself to blame.
Yeah, no, it was an utterly stupid plan on her part, I'm gonna be honest. Because she didn't tell anybody about it.
I like, though, that right after that, it's revealed that Mogul is just, like, floating in the sky and watching, and he is just, like, on a complete power trip, and he's like, fools! Are they unaware of what I have achieved? He's just reveling in this moment. He's like, I could jump on them at any moment, and he does in a second, of course.
He does, but shortly before that, Sonic and friends show up out of fucking nowhere. I mean, like, we saw them on a screen before, but, like, they're just here. They got here real fast.
Yeah, so I have to assume the Dark Legion were not actually fought off that quickly.
That it was like a battle going on for a few hours, maybe.
Yeah, they time compressed that instead of time compressing everything else they really should have.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, they show up. Mammoth Mogul teleports Knuckles, Sonic, and Tails, weirdly. Knuckles and Sonic makes sense. Tails has not had a lot to do with any of the big villains of these comics.
Oh boy, though, there's a reason why they teleport Tails.
Oh yes.
But that's the end of this arc. That's the end of this comic, and the end of this arc is just Mogul looking powerful, I guess. He's looking angry strong, and everybody looks scared or angry at him.
Yeah, this is a killer way to end this arc, I must say, on this wicked cliffhanger that goes into the Sonic comics. So there's like a super direct link here now.
Yeah, it's a big cliffhanger moment. I will say, it really means that the arc does not coalesce into anything coherent, though. Like, what was this about?
Well, I will admit that they wasted almost the entire time here. Like, I love this ending, but you did not need everything that came before it to get here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could have done this in one issue, probably.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter, because we're done with that now.
Yeah, let's move on to the next part.
Yes, we are reading Sonic the Hedgehog number 56, and it's the one that I have to give an award to for least readable issue. And I don't mean that in that it's the worst issue, or that it's like the most bullshit or anything. It's just really hard to tell what's going on.
Yeah, it's literally unreadable.
Yeah,
so I think I know what you guys are talking about here, but I love this thoroughly.
So here's the thing, it's not a bad issue story-wise, at least from what I remember.
It's kind of a shame because it is a big story issue, or at least a big plot issue, and you've got this awesome cover with the incorrectly drawn Supersonic, albeit, and Knuckles fighting against the ethereal Phantom of Mogul.
Yeah.
But the story in this issue is called Immortality is Forever, Life is Finite, which that sure is a thing that's true. It's not really a good title, but it is
that's a good point.
Written by Scott Fulop, which means that he may have had a hand with Mogul in the last issue and just not gotten credit for it or something. And it is drawn by John Herbert, and Harvo, and Manny Gallen, and Jim Amish. And that's part of the problem. Is that 4 artists means there's not a lot of coordination, and it means that it's really hard to tell visually what's going on.
Yeah.
You were talking about the art. See, art is just always weird in these, and I don't really pay attention to that.
But it's not just the drawings, but it's the paneling, it's the composition, it's the layouts that make it difficult. We'll get to it. Let me do the summary.
Personally, it may not have helped for me because I read this at like 2 o'clock in the morning.
That's a horrible idea.
Anyway.
But looking at it now, it's like it's a little hard to follow.
Well, we'll get into it. Do you want to try to summarize this, Devin?
Yes. Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles are teleported to a dangerous alternate dimension by Mammoth Mogul. They escape, powered up with super forms, including a new one for Tails, and bring him to his defeat, securing the true Sword of Acorns and the power of 14 Chaos Emeralds condensed within Angel Island. Sonic resolves to leave home with Tails in search of adventure.
Yeah, so actually, in essence, it's not so complicated, but
No,
there actually is quite a bit more in there than all that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we start in, like, space, question mark. It's actually like a parallel dimension of some sort.
It's like nowhere land.
Yeah. And as you said, Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails.
Yeah.
They're all lying on top of each other. And they get up and they look around and it's like, oh, this is a weird place that doesn't have any sort of coherence to it. Sonic, like, melts or, like, gets his legs stuck in jizz or something that's on the floor, but it's okay because they punch some rocks and then they're alright.
Yeah, I mean, it's just another one of those weird dimensions, like a vertical or an horizontal place or the zone of silence or whatever. I'm used to this by now.
Yeah.
A teeny tiny stick figure drawing of Athera shows up to get them out of there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And they transport through the Matrix wormhole zone to... I guess we're still on Angel Island. This is the thing that makes it hard, is because there's not a lot of background art in this issue, and logically we must still be in Echidnaopolis. We see some of the others. We see the dingoes and we see a couple ants. It doesn't look like Echidnaopolis for what few bits of background art we get. We get, like, giant rocks or something, or maybe that's a building that's been, like, bombed?
Yeah, there's definitely a building that I can see in one of these panels. I think Mogul, like, sent out an energy wave or something and just leveled a bunch of stuff.
He declares himself Master Mogul because he's got the power of something.
13 Chaos Emeralds.
Yeah, I suppose. And he basically says, oh, with Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles trapped in that dimension, they'll be my evil soldiers. And there's this hilariously weird and gross-looking drawing of them with, like, spiky teeth chasing after randos.
Yeah, that looks hilarious.
And this is where the art starts to break down, because it's got very messy inking, and again, the lack of backgrounds, and it's like, I can't quite tell what I'm looking at a lot of these times. I think I'm seeing the silhouette of Rotor and Charmy in this panel on the top right, above the one with the dingo and the ant guy.
Yeah, I guess.
Maybe?
Are those not just the dingo and the ant? Because that kind of looks like what it's meant to be.
No, because the dude has antennas and the ant wears a beret. And I think I'm seeing one of Rotor's tusks.
Maybe you were right. It really
don't
doesn't
know.
matter who's there.
Yeah, no, it's all filler dialogue. Fucking Hershey appears for one panel, which I don't even think she came with them in the previous issue.
Yeah, I don't know why Hershey is here with them. It's kind of random.
I think that was what it made weird for me, is that we're supposedly on Angel Island, but I would only expect to see Hershey back at Knothole since she didn't come with them. But apparently she did, as Mogul is just shooting big chaos lasers everywhere.
Yeah, so he's having a good time. Not to be outdone, he's got to give himself a new title and that cool getup. Until, of course, Sonic and Knuckles burst in, are like, all right, that's enough.
Yeah, they break out of the trap dimension and they've got their arms covered in rings. I don't know where they got those. We didn't see that before, but it's whatever.
Took a pit stop in a special zone.
Yeah, I suppose.
You only do so much in 24 pages.
This is an issue that is jam-packed, that's true.
Yeah, so they fight him, but they can't do it, so they're like, alright, now we're going to transform. I don't know why they waited, but they do that. We get Super Sonic and Hyper Knuckles.
Yeah, so on the one hand, using Mogul's Blast as a substitute for Chaos Emeralds is pretty convenient, but that's also pretty awesome. Honestly, that moment when suddenly like, okay, we're going to go Super now, I'm like, yeah, I dig this.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And they do manage to destroy his Chaos Emerald staff, but he says that his staff was just a construct to cover up the real Chaos Emerald, which he has embedded in his chest.
Yeah. So he's always got to show how super sneaky he is, because he's smart, unlike his predecessor that he just stole most of his power from.
Yeah. So Mogul powers up, maybe? I don't know, but he manages to get the drop on Sonic and Knuckles, and they get hit real bad. But then Mogul gets hit real bad by a hooded, cloaked figure. But it's like we have this hooded, cloaked figure show up to hit Mogul and say how cool they is. You know, everybody's like, "Oh, who is this guy?" And he has a big, epic, dramatic panel, and then it's revealed to be Tails.
Yeah.
Heck yeah! So I'm so glad that they're finally making good on what they set up in the Tails miniseries. And this reveals the reason that Mogul imprisoned Tails along with the other two, because he realized he had secret, untapped potential.
Yeah.
So this is marvelous.
Yeah.
Yes, this is Turbo Tails, his first
Fuck yeah.
super form in the comics. And yeah, we heard that Tails was the subject of some Chosen One prophecy, and apparently his destiny is to defeat Mogul.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I'm not sure about his methods, though, because we're fighting him here, and, you know, we beat on him a few times. There's a very funny-looking panel of them all just, like, punching him really fast, but it's not really doing anything.
It's the
So,
Steve Armstrong meme.
yeah.
Well, yeah. So they're just beating him up, but they have, you know, they're just using chaos energy fragments. But he has like the full power of 13 chaos emeralds.
Right.
But Tails demonstrates that he has smarts as well by somehow finding the chaos siphon. I will admit I don't understand how he got it, but I do appreciate that they brought that back because I am a huge fan of continuity, and that is completely the logical way to defeat him, drain him, undo, you know, kind of how Dimitri originally got the chaos emeralds that Mogul now has.
It makes sense to use the Chaos Siphon on him, yes. It does not make sense how Tails would know about it, how Tails would be able to find it, or the fact that it would exist in the first place since it was originally used hundreds of years ago.
That's not important.
Is it the same siphon? It must be, right?
I'm pretty sure it is. I appreciate the sentiment. I agree. I don't understand. It's just a really packed issue, guys. They didn't have time to explain that.
Okay, here's the other thing, though, is that when Dimitri used the siphon, it funneled all of the Chaos Emerald energy into him. When Tails does it, it doesn't do that.
Tails is smart.
Yeah, he just knows how to use it correctly. Dimitri used it wrong on accident and then took credit for it like it was on purpose.
Dimitri doesn't know how to use his own fucking invention?
Yeah,
100%.
he's a mad scientist. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Reason had its fucking day.
Yes, indeed.
Damn it.
Okay. Maybe the ancient walkers or Aether gave it to him or something. I don't know.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's the idea. I mean, Aether is standing looking all cool on, you know, a ledge up there.
Yeah. I do appreciate this panel where Locke is, like, upset that the ancient walkers went over his head and didn't tell him. And, fucking Saber says, sort of unsettling when someone else does it to you, huh? Which is like, yeah.
Every time. I love that.
They're gonna keep doing it, though, which, you know, is kind of the problem. But Mogul escapes, heading for the Chaos Chamber. And I'm really uncomfortable with how much detail they place on his gross giant feet, but he tries to get in there, and suddenly all of the coloring disappears for a page in one panel, which makes it even harder to tell what's going on. It looks like just raw inks.
Yeah, because it's on, like, a monitor screen. Freaking Locke is like, I can't be outdone. I have to save the day again. And somehow he causes an explosion that seals Mogul in all those emeralds. I don't know how he does that.
I didn't even know that was what happened. This was the thing I was going to say, is that I can be sure that something happens with Mogul, Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, the Chaos Siphon, and Locke, but it is so messy that I can't really tell what even happened, and we kind of flash forward to the battle being over.
Well, it says, for the good of our people, we act now, and may the likes of Dimitri, Mogul, and any tyrant never subjugate our homeworld again. I assume that's Locke and what's-his-face.
Yeah, and maybe would make sense. Probably. Who knows?
I really don't think it's that unclear. I think you're playing this up a little bit, honestly.
Maybe. Who knows? Who knows what I'm doing? I am also incomprehensible.
Oh no.
The point is, we win, and we end off with Manny Gallen's artwork, which is like, oh, suddenly I can tell what's going on. And, yeah, he's beaten, and we finally get the real Sword of Acorns, back to Sally.
Yeah, that's cool. We complete an arc that I forgot we hadn't actually completed.
Yeah, I know, they totally forgot about the sword for several episodes.
To be fair, the heroes... Wait, did the heroes realize it was a fake? I honestly don't remember.
Yes.
They did.
Okay. Yeah, that... Well, I guess I didn't have any leads. And, more pressing matters to worry about. Like,
Right.
the king being the king. And then, obviously, stress calls from Angel Island and whatnot. But, yeah, so Mogul is sealed in a big old emerald. Looks a whole lot like a certain gemstone from Sonic the Hedgehog 3.
This is one of the funniest things about this comic, is that in Sonic the Hedgehog 3, Knuckles is the guardian of the Master Emerald. In the Sonic the Hedgehog comics, Knuckles is the guardian of Angel Island and whichever Chaos Emeralds happen to exist therein. And now, 56 goddamn issues into this series, that's many, many years, that's like 5 years almost, we finally have a Master Emerald on Angel Island, which Mogul is now sealed within, which is absolutely hilarious to any Sonic fan who has played a game called Sonic Adventure.
Look forward to that.
Yeah, so Sonic invites Knuckles to come on their trip of deliberately seeking out trouble, but Knuckles is like, no, I'm needed back home. And we are finally done with Mammoth Mogul for a little bit.
Yeah, so honestly, as I've said, I like Mogul. He's funny. I think he's the perfect sort of random, out of left field, weird villain exclusive to Sonic comics. I think he embodies that well, and he's fun in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I think this is a fitting issue where he gets to be the big bad and then get defeated, but in spectacular fashion with obviously Supersonic Hyper Knuckles and my boy Turbo Tails.
Yeah, no. In concept, I really like all sorts of things about this. I think this is a prime issue for like a redraw project.
Yeah.
I also have to say, I'm always a big person when it comes to continuity. And like every 2 seconds, one of the characters is spouting out, I'll admit, a whole lot of clunkily written dialogue. But they bring in so much stuff. There's obviously Aether in the Ancient Woggers. There's Mogul, who just recently usurped Enerjak, and then of course there's Supersonic and Hyper Knuckles, which they reference the Supersonic and Hyper Knuckles issue as if that was like instrumental in them sort of gaining more mastery of their forms, because surprisingly, after 56 issues, the super forms barely show up. So that actually is important for that, and I interpret it that way. And then of course there's Tails' prophecy being fulfilled, the Chaos Siphon, that kicked off like the whole chain reaction of events that eventually led to this point, and then Locke sneaking around and yeah, a spectacular defeat. So I just like all the elements that are here. Admittedly, not presented in the most graceful manner, but I like what it's going.
No, it's fun enough. It feels like almost like it would have been a milestone issue, but it's not.
It does have that feel, certainly.
And once we get into the adventure portion of these comics, we'll know that Mammoth Mogul showing up in milestone issues is a bad thing, but we couldn't have known that back then. You'll see what I mean. Don't worry.
All right.
But it is also not the end of our comics tonight, because we have one more comic to close off this whole shebang with the sword, and that is Sonic Super Special number 4, Return of the King.
Honestly, I didn't know he was gone.
Well, he wasn't physically gone. But hey, we got Sonic with a sword, years before Sonic and the Black Knight. So.
That's true.
I will say something is up with Max's face on the cover here. He's like got a really unhinged jaw.
Weird look.
I can't tell if he's supposed to be screaming or...
No, I have no idea what emotion this communicates. But yes, the story here is The Return of the King, written by Carl Ballers and drawn by Sam Maxwell. The freedom fighters return to Mobotropolis to find it in a state of civil war between Robians and the Royal Army. Worse still, the soldiers all claim it was the freedom fighters who ordered this purge. It's up to Sonic to figure out what's going on and subdue the corrupted king.
We're in front of those issues, guys.
Yeah, I'm embellishing slightly because the freedom fighters do not return to find Mobotropolis in a state of civil war. They return and then they tell the king, oh, hey, you should kill all the Robians. And we're like, what? What's going on? And then it's revealed that that's a vision inside the king's head.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's pretty obvious when they set this up that something weird is going on. Although, in my opinion, the weirdest thing is that the king can just walk around, no problem at all. It's like he's not even sick anymore. He looks weird, but he's fine otherwise.
Well, I mean, obviously his crystal state and his mental state have some amount of link, but it's not really, it's not harming him physically, is he?
I'm not going to let this go, because this is my last chance to harp on that point. He's going to get cured.
Yeah. I will say, I like Sam Maxwell's art for this issue. It's still weird, but it has a certain finesse to it that I feel wasn't there in the previous issues. Just the shot of them landing the big ship, which I guess they now have, it's not faceplane. I just like the sort of perspective on it. And actually, I say, like, oh, why does their ship look like that? But then on their way back, the real freedom fighters from Angel Island, they're flying a completely different aircraft, so maybe that's intentional?
Yeah, I mean, probably.
There's also this weird bit of visual storytelling where they crash through either a statue of King Max or like a apparition of him?
I mean, it's a statue.
Yeah.
I guess. When did he have that built? But yeah, they crash land and they get out and they're okay. You may notice, by the way, that Hershey still isn't with him, so it still makes no sense that she appeared in last issue.
I agree. I don't understand why she came along with them.
Yeah,
hey guys, you forget about me, she should say as she pops in.
Yeah. But they're talking with some of the soldiers and they're like, hey, yeah, we're killing the Robians just like you asked. And they're like, what? What the hell are you talking about?
I like how they're trying to talk to the guards initially, and they're, like, ignoring them. But then Sonic spins one into Tornado, and he's like, okay, now you gotta talk. And the guard's like, yeah, okay, I'll talk as I'm being spun around in the air. He doesn't really care.
Yeah. Although he does follow them into this little abandoned building with some Robians in it. And, the Robians are just as pissed off as everybody else.
Yeah, at least we can rely on good old Uncle Chuck to be reasonable here.
Yeah, he's a little skeptical, but he's mostly on their side.
I like, though, that the other Robians are like, no, let's shoot him. And then Sonic does, like, a super fast whiz around, disarms them all. And just like, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. This all gets thrown way out of hand, though, because the soldier guy they met at the start decides to just fucking shoot Uncle Chuck. I guess he was just standing that whole time and just decided we need to.
Well, so we're going to get to it here. But I think it's already kind of clear that the people here are, not thinking straight at all. So yeah, for some reason, some mysterious influence compels him to shoot Uncle Chuck. Jerk.
You don't want to shoot Uncle Chuck. That's like shooting Mr. Rogers,
Apt comparison.
Yeah.
He's okay. It's fine.
Yeah, no, he gets better in just like a few pages.
I mean, he is a robot, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, but he didn't really even try with that one, did they?
Yeah, but they do have one good thing, which is the Sword of Acorns, which can flash light, and then people remember what's actually going on.
Yeah, it's the sword of plot. It's probably somehow linked to the rings in some way. I'd wager.
And it basically they theorized that some sort of hypnotic manipulation is going on here, which is why that guy shot Uncle Chuck, basically, and the sword can fix it. And they basically theorize that it's Nagus, and then Nagus just comes out and admits it.
Yeah, so that's so stupid. Sonic, it's just like, we found you out. He's like, oh, very good, Quickster.
He says it through the king's body, but that doesn't mean much.
Well, it means he revealed that he controlled the king too. He's acting so stupid.
It's
So there's a very problematic thing here, which is, so Nagus reveals that he took control of the king after he became fully crystallized, when his mind was clouded with hatred, which you see, a few pages in to this issue, which means that the king's outrage when he declared that all Robians should be murdered a few issues ago was not Nagus. That was actually just the king.
Huh. Oh, I never thought of that. Yeah, what the hell, Max?
oh. Hmm.
You were on point when you said he's just not right in the head.
Yeah, but I said that thinking that there was still Nagus's manipulation going on, but if that... So that would mean that he was just hallucinating them saying all of that. And that doesn't make any sense to me, though. I assumed... I'm gonna say I'm still assuming that maybe Nagus just didn't have full control until that point. I cannot fathom that he was not still manipulating him in some way before then. That is really weird, though. I'm not...
Well, they
you
make
are
that
correct.
point. So, I don't know. I mean, it's true. It's not clear. I just wanted to point that out, that you could interpret it that way.
Yeah. I never thought of that. That's so stupid.
Right?
So, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, Nagus is like, all right, Quickster, you may think you've won, but I'm not afraid to jump off the side of this building and kill myself so the king will die too. And Sonic's like, no, you won't. You bluff. And he's like, yeah, I will. And he jumps off.
Yeah. And Sonic jumps off with him. They both do. And the sword is the light of Christ and saves them, I guess. I don't know. It's the light of something. Ballers is not as violently Christian as Penders, but the sword magics them to safety is the point. And it also gets caught in a stone, so we can have the King Arthur metaphor.
So stupid.
But after all that, we are done with the sword quest, and we are done with Max's crystallization, and he declares himself in full control of his mental faculties when he pulls the sword from the stone, and yeah.
We'll see just how that pans out. Yeah, he's back. I mean, he didn't really feel like he was gone that much. Pretty disappointing conclusion, I must say, for this story that's built up so much.
Yeah. It's a case of we've had this sword quest going for so long, and the sword quest was just part of the greater crown quest because the crown was supposed to be what cured him, but you could only get the crown by having the sword? And
yeah,
the
sword
crown
was just in his mind, apparently. Or not, the crown was just in his mind.
Yeah, and this... I don't get it. So that's it. That's the end. Very, very weird story. I don't hate it, but it's not like... It's sloppy.
It's underwhelming.
Yeah.
Sure.
But we do have one other story for this special, which is Down and Out in Down Under, which is drawn by Nelson Ortega and written by Michael Gallagher, who we have not seen in a really long time, it feels like.
Yeah.
Since at least Endgame, but even then he was not like a big part of Endgame, I don't think. And in this one, Bunny and Antoine tell the story of their escape from the prison in Down Under during the Endgame arc.
Yeah, so they take some time to expand that bit of the story, although actually, as it was written, this was actually the other way around, wasn't it? They actually used some pages from this for the director's cut, didn't they?
I believe so. I don't remember exactly how it worked. I initially thought that all of this was included in Endgame, which is not true. There's way more to this. But it meant that I didn't take very complex notes on it, just because it's all stuff that we basically know what happens.
Kind of. I felt like the Down Under stuff in Endgame was not very developed. It was not very necessary. All right, so I appreciate this. I do think they try to make it have some more satisfaction in its own and feel like, an actual somewhat important part, at least for Antoine and Bunny here, because it's their story. and they
And
look
they have
adorable
not
on this
had
first
many
page.
stories recently, have they?
That's true.
Yeah, that's very true.
It's basically what you'd expect, though, because we knew parts of how they escaped. We knew the bit where Barbie Koala mauls a combat or whatever.
I will say that I very much appreciate that they finally explain that, yes, Crockbot was trying to betray Robotnik here, because it was very jarring to bring back a villain that I remembered for, his brazen treachery, but he seemingly didn't care about that anymore. But in this, turns out the miniature nuke that Antoine and Bunny got was actually originally going to be used by Crockbot to blow up the Ultimate Annihilator.
Which really means that there was just no chance of this thing working for Robotnik.
Yeah, no, everything was stacked against him. Yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, lots of fighting. They steal the mini nuke and they escape, and that's about it.
There's a great line from one of the combots as they're getting ready to disembark in Robotropolis, where they say, "I'm going below. Stay alert, my fellow combots. Remember, Robotnik still employs inferior SWAT bots in Robotropolis," which is just a great line.
They have
because,
like a hierarchy.
yeah, for the most part, I hate the combots. I think they're even more out of place than the SWAT bots, which are already kind of out of place for a Robotnik creation. But finally, we get a moment where it's got one of them's got a little bit of personality to it. I like that.
Yeah. I guess this story it's an okay story. I maybe it's partially it's just that it's a recap of something we've already seen that is like making it somewhat underwhelming for me, but it's okay because this is an underwhelming issue in general.
Well, I like this, although certainly I find it's weaker because we've seen some of it already. I don't know. It probably would have been too cluttered to include all of it in Endgame.
Probably. That would have resulted in Endgame being like 60 pages long, so.
Yeah. Maybe they actually should have included less in Endgame, because that part was almost completely irrelevant, like I said, and then you could hint at a greater story. I don't know. It's kind of weird the way it turns out here. Again, as we're reading the actually director's cut version after this, which this came before that, so.
Well, I do like that it's all framed around, they're having a party or whatever, because that almost feels like sort of a last hurrah for the classic Freedom Gang, because next time on Deep Dive Zone, we are leaving. Sonic and Tails mentioned that they wanted to leave Knothole and Mobotropolis to go on other adventures, and that is happening for real, and they're not going to be back for, in real life, it was an entire year.
Yeah.
So, look forward to that. It's going to get interesting, it's going to get weird, some of it's going to be pretty bad, and the Knuckles comics are going to stay exactly the same.
Good. There's always something we can fall back to, I guess.
Which, I guess I'm giving the point to... I don't know, I don't know whether I'm giving the point to Knuckles or Sonic's comics tonight.
I could answer that, but it feels like a cop-out because they're intertwined.
I'm gonna give it to Sonic just because 56 is such a fascinating, weird thing.
I agree completely.
Yeah, and Return of the King is okay. It's not a terrible special.
Return of the King gets no points for me. The Mogul issue is the only good issue in this whole bunch.
Oh, but that means that you have to rank. Okay, we're all giving it to Sonic, all right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we have to rank Return of the King as a special compared to friggin' Battle Royale and the other one.
What's the other one?
I don't know. It's been too long. This is the problem with trying to rank these. Okay, there was Battle Royale, there was Brave New World, and then there was this. So I guess no, Battle Royale is still better than both of these.
Oh, Battle Royale definitely wins out of all three. That's tricky, actually. 2 week specials, trying to rank them against each other.
I'm putting Return of the King over Brave New World because I like Sam Maxwell's art, and we get an Antoine and Bunny story.
That's fair.
Brave New World tried a few interesting things at least. This one was disappointing. I do agree that the Antoine and Bunny story is good, though. So I guess that being the only good thing among all that, I think definitively, sure.
All right, we did it. We made it through a week.
Hey.
Sorry, this
Yes,
felt like
you
a really
did.
weird episode to record. But it's okay, because we're done. For our audience, thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, you can reach us at deepdivezonepod@gmail.com or at deepdivezone on Twitter. And once I actually get that co-host up and working, I'm going to put that in there. I forgot to do it last week.
Damn
Feel free to
cringe.
share... Feel free to share, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed. Have a great night, and we'll see you next week for something less schizophrenic than tonight's episode, I hope.
All right, sure.
Later. Good night.